She just wanted food for her daughter. The manager mocked her. The CEO was secretly watching. The woman stood near the glass doors of the restaurant, her hands trembling as she clutched a small, worn purse, the smell of warm food drifting toward her like a cruel reminder of everything she could not afford. Outside, rain slid down the windows in thin, restless lines, but inside, laughter and clinking plates filled the air, loud enough to drown out the quiet desperation in her chest. She had not planned to come here, not really, yet hunger has a way of pushing pride into corners where it can barely breathe. All she wanted was food for her daughter, something warm to quiet the crying stomach of a child who had not eaten properly in 2 days. If you believe that kindness still matters in a world that often forgets the poor and the struggling, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more stories about second chances and humanity. Her name was Lena, and life had not been gentle with her. Once, she had dreams of stability, of a small home filled with ordinary happiness, but a sudden illness, medical bills, and the loss of her job had dismantled those dreams piece by fragile piece. Her husband had left when the weight became too heavy, choosing distance over responsibility, leaving Lena alone with a 5-year-old daughter whose eyes still trusted the world completely. Every day became a calculation of survival, deciding whether money should go to rent, medicine, or food, and that night, the decision had already been made. By an empty cupboard and a sleeping child with tears dried on her cheeks, summoning courage, Lena stepped inside the restaurant, her clothes clean but faded, her shoes worn thin at the soles. She did not ask for charity. She asked if there was any leftover food, anything unsold, anything that might otherwise be thrown away. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic, as if merely existing in that space was already an offense. The manager, a man dressed in crisp confidence and practiced indifference, barely looked at her before letting out a small, humorless laugh. He scanned her from head to toe, his expression tightening with judgment, and dismissed her request with mocking disbelief, treating her hunger as an inconvenience, her struggle as entertainment. Around them, customers continued eating, unaware or unwilling to notice, while Lena felt her face burn with shame. Each second stretched painfully as she realized she had been reduced to a spectacle, a reminder of poverty that made others uncomfortable. She tried to explain, not with excuses but with truth, that she had a child waiting, that she was not asking for money, only food. Yet the mockery continued, sharper now, louder, echoing off polished walls and cutting deeper than hunger ever could. In that moment, Lena wished she had never come, wished she could disappear into the rain outside and cry where no one could see. What she did not know was that someone was watching from the upper floor, seated quietly in a corner reserved for privacy. The CEO of the restaurant chain had chosen that evening for an unannounced visit, wanting to observe operations without the polished performance employees put on when they knew leadership was present. He had built the company from nothing, once understanding hunger and hardship intimately, and although success had changed his surroundings, he had never fully forgotten those early days. As his eyes followed the scene unfolding below, something in his chest tightened, an old memory resurfacing, one he thought time had dulled. From his vantage point, he saw the manager's posture, heard the tone dripping with superiority, and watched Lena's shoulders slowly curve inward as if trying to protect what little dignity she had left. The CEO did not intervene immediately. Instead, he observed the reactions of others, noting how easy it was for cruelty to exist when people assumed no consequences would follow. Lena eventually turned away, her request unanswered, her hope quietly crushed, and stepped back into the rain with nothing but heavier steps and a deeper ache. She walked home slowly, every movement weighed down by guilt. The thought of her daughter asking again if there was food made her chest tighten painfully. When she reached their small, dimly lit room, she told her daughter that dinner would come tomorrow, that today was just a little harder, and wrapped her in a blanket to keep the cold from settling into tiny bones. Lena stayed awake long after, staring at the ceiling, wondering how a world full of abundance could still let children go hungry. The next morning, everything changed in a way Lena could never have imagined. The restaurant doors opened early, and the same manager arrived confident, unaware that his performance the night before had been carefully noted. Within minutes, he was called into a meeting that felt unusually formal. The CEO stood there calmly, not angry but deeply disappointed, recounting the events of the previous night with unsettling precision. Every word stripped away the manager's certainty, replacing it with the realization that his behavior had been seen, measured, and judged. The consequences were swift, not born of vengeance but of principle. The manager was removed from his position, not just for mocking a woman in need, but for representing everything the company refused to stand for. Policies were reviewed, training was mandated, and a new initiative was launched to ensure that no one seeking food would ever be humiliated within those walls again. But the CEO's actions did not stop at punishment. They extended toward compassion. Through quiet inquiry, he found Lena. When she returned to the restaurant days later, this time invited rather than desperate, she walked in cautiously, unsure of what awaited her. She was offered not leftovers, but respect, warmth, and an opportunity. A job suited to her schedule was arranged, childcare support was discussed, and food was placed in her hands without conditions. Lena struggled to understand how quickly life had shifted, how humiliation had transformed into possibility. As weeks passed, stability began to replace fear. Lena worked diligently, grateful not just for the income but for the dignity she had been denied for so long. Her daughter laughed more, slept better, and began believing again that tomorrow could be kind. The restaurant itself changed too, becoming a place where generosity was practiced quietly and consistently, where employees were taught that success meant nothing if it came at the cost of humanity. If this story is touching your heart so far, take a moment to comment below with a single word that represents what this story makes you feel. Your words matter, and they help spread messages like this to others who need them. Years later, Lena would look back on that rainy night not as her lowest point, but as the moment everything turned. It taught her that cruelty can wound deeply, but compassion, when it arrives, has the power to rebuild entire lives. And somewhere in that same city, a CEO continued to watch quietly, not for profit alone, but for moments where a simple act of kindness could change a story forever. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that small actions can create powerful change, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more real, emotional stories like this to life, and together, we can keep kindness alive.